What's up, everybody? How you doing? Welcome back to the Punk Rock Review. Man, I got a fun video today. So about, I don't know, man, 6, 7, 8 months ago, I did a video called 90s Street Punk, A Brief History and the Bands You Need to Know. Had no expectations for that video. I just wanted to try something a little bit different. It did really well. 60,000+ views on a channel my size. That's extraordinary. So I was asked quite a bit very quickly to do a second part. And I thought, like, yeah, I'll get around to it. And I'm finally here doing the second part. So this is 90s street punk part 2, essentially. But this is all the stuff that we grew up listening to if you're like an early 80s kid like me, right? 1982 right here. So yeah, man, back in the 90s, people don't want to admit it, but the pop punk explosion did have a ripple effect. The more kids that got into pop punk means the more kids that eventually got into like real punk rock music. So we had an explosion of these bands. They got popular. They might have existed without the pop punk boom, but they wouldn't have gotten as popular, is my point. Punkcore records, Charged records, Epitaph records, Fat records wouldn't have gotten as big had we not had these explosions. And that doesn't mean that those other bands are necessarily punk. It just means that they're gateways to getting to what, quote unquote, real punk rock. I don't care. I'm not here to argue about some elitist, all the idiots in the comments that want to talk about like Green Day's not punk rock. I do whatever, cool, man. I don't care if you like it or not, man. It's up to you. That is your prerogative, dude. You like what you want to like, how you want to like it. Anyways, my point is we're here to celebrate some more bands. I hope you're here hanging out. I hope you're having a good time. Before we go any further, this video is brought to you by 31 Records, my label. We're doing some really, really big things right now. We've got 3 vinyl releases due all before the springtime. So January and February are going to be really big months for us. If you want to check out that, go to my Bandcamp. There's a link in the description. And you can check out my Patreon if you want to support that way. I'm not trying to like pander to anyone, but a lot of people ask, how do I support outside of just tipping the channel? That's how you would do it. There's a link to my Discogs as well if you want to check out my store. I got a record store as well. So I'm making a push at doing all this stuff as full-time as I can do it. That being said, let's talk about some good old punk rock and roll bands. And if you are stoked to be here, throw me a like, subscribe to the channel. Yeah. Oh, also, I went to LA and interviewed Jesse Michaels from Operation Ivy. I am editing that. It is taking way longer than I thought, but it looks really good. So cool, right? But we'll start off with a band, with a Dutch punk band called Antidote. This is one that was asked about a lot in the other video, and I thought, man, I don't know why I didn't include them. And also, you got to remember, a lot of these bands I might have heard a few times, liked them, and they just didn't like stick to me for whatever reason. As you know, I've been around 25 years longer now. I've listened to a lot more music. Antidote was a Dutch punk band formed in 1996. They released 5 full-length albums, and they toured extensively over in Europe, North America, Russia, with prominent U.S. punk bands such as The Casualties and The Virus. They write politically motivated songs with lyrics that support the squatting movement. They're anti-fascist, anti-homophobic, and they even criticize the punk rock scene itself. Antidote is like the Norwegian version of The Casualties. They sound kind of like the Restarts and maybe Oxymoron, One Way System to me, but they've got an album called My Life, and then they've got one called Go Pogo, I believe, that came out just a little bit after, and those are both really good representations of their sound. In December 2012, Antidote officially announced their breakup. In 2017, though, they reunited for a series of festival performances. I don't know what's been going on with them since then, but Antidote, really good band. Check them out. All right, this next band, I don't know, man. I don't know if they qualify as street punk. It's blurry lines, dude. I don't know, but I love this band. So when they kept popping up in the comments of the other video, so I'm very happy to talk about them. That would be Rotten. They're more of a crust band than a street punk band, I guess. But like I said, blurred lines and all. And most of those bands played together typically anyways. So, whatever. What's the difference between like dirty camo shorts and dreadlocks and a big red mohawk with a spiky jacket? Not a lot, honestly. Those bands crisscross. They like the same stuff. We stand for the same causes typically. I mean, it's just kind of a punk rock's weird, man. There's a lot of different subcategories in the stuff, and I kind of love it for that, right? They formed in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They were active between 1991 and 2001. The members practiced and promoted a philosophy of anarchic politics. The band's name came from the German verb ausrotten, which translates to exterminate or eradicate. According to the band, they're influenced by Black Flag, Conflict, Crass, and Subhumans. I think that's pretty clear if you listen to their music. So if that sounds enticing to you, I'd say give them a try. I like quite a bit of their music. Most of their songs espouse an anarchist worldview, touching on consumerism, LGBTQ plus rights, the Christian right, direct action, feminism, AIDS, immigration, and animal rights. The band is perhaps most famous for their very quotable, very outrageous lyrics, such as "People are not expendable, the government is," "As long as flags fly above us, no one is free," things like that. They're also known for their anti-fascist stance, which most punk bands are. Check out their first full length, "The System Works for Them." That was the first record I heard by them when I was living in my buddy's garage in like 2000, 2001, and I liked it right away. So Oshrotten is a solid band. Give them a shot. All right, here's one that I wasn't sure I wanted to include, but they got brought up quite a bit in the last video, so we're going to talk about it for a minute. We got Blank 77. They're just a punk rock band active from 1990 to 2001, and then again from 2004 onward. Originally based in Hillside, New Jersey, they have since relocated to Denville in the same state. The band has maintained a prolific career, having released 3 albums and numerous EPs. They appeared on numerous compilations. They toured Europe twice, the US countless times. They also shared the stage with a lot of really prominent bands in the punk rock scene, such as The Misfits, Rancid, Dwarves, The Business, Bad Brains, One Way System, Anti-Nowhere League, Anti-Heroes, Dropkick Murphys, GBH, the UK Subs, and Total Chaos, many, many more, right? Blink 77 were pretty popular. I remember having their album Killer Blanks on CD, 1996, 21 songs, 42 minutes, crazy. And it had this really cool lenticular cover, like when you moved it, the image changed a little bit. But that's what stuck out to me when bands went the extra mile. It really caught my attention. So in 1990, when the band got together, they called themselves the Blanks because when they were trying to come up with a name, their minds went blank. Shortly thereafter, they were informed that there was already a band called the Blanks. And so they added the 77 to their name in reference to the year 1977, the emergence of rebellion. Shameless plug. Go check out that video, linked in the description. Killer Blanks was their first record, actually. It was released first in Germany on the Nasty Vinyl label in 1995, and then in the US a year later with 4 extra songs on it, on Radical Records. The band sounds kind of like if the Unseen had like a snotty pop punk vocalist and not somebody that yelled with like the real grit of some of the dudes from that band, Mark Unseen specifically. It's a very interesting combo of sounds. I like it quite a bit. I don't remember liking it much, to be real honest about it, which is why I didn't include them on the last round. And then I went back and listened to them a little bit to do this video and was like, what was I thinking? I don't know, man. Taste changed, and I hadn't heard them in a long time. I really like their music, though. Next up, we've got Career Soldiers, another one that was asked for a lot in the comments of the other video. If you've heard the name of this band and you didn't see a photo of them, you'd probably think they were maybe like a mid-paced oi band, something like Street Dogs or The Last Resort. Oh, no, no, no. This band is much more like The Unseen or The Casualties, something like that. Big mohawks, spiky jackets, all that stuff. Career Soldiers were a street punk band based in San Diego, California, active from 2002 to 2009. The band toured the US and Canada with bands like The Casualties, Lower Class Brats, Monster Squad, Clit 45, UK Subs, and Funeral Dress. They were formed in August of 2002. Then they recorded a demo, and then that November they started playing shows. Some of their first ones being with Thought Riot and Toxic Narcotic. Now that band is awesome. Go check out Toxic Narcotic. I should do a video about those guys. Later on, they added a second guitarist so the singer could focus solely on his vocal duties. I think that's a wise decision. You can do a lot more when you have 5 people in a band. In March of 2003, they recorded their Passion for Destruction EP. But later in 2003, they recorded a full-length record. It would be their debut, titled Finding Freedom in Hopelessness, released in September of 2004 on ADD Records. In August of 2005, the band toured nationally with Cheap Sex and the Homies in the Havoc. Love those dudes. Followed by a tour with The Unseen and A Global Threat. Wow, that's a tour I wish I would have seen. In early 2006, the band booked a 6-week tour through the US and Canada with Clit 45. In the same year, they finished writing new material, which would later become the album Loss of Words, released by Punkcore Records in 2007. In December of 2008, the band announced on their website that they had officially broken up due to financial strain and band members living in different cities. That's really unfortunate because they're a really good band, but that seems to happen quite often where these bands just struggle financially and they don't live in the same place. It's just really hard to keep doing music together. But we did get some, physical releases from this band, something we can go back and listen to. I appreciate that. Next up is Cheap Sex. They're an American street punk band formed in December of 2002, based out of San Diego, California. Besides releasing 3 albums, the band participated in a lot of compilations, including the Pure Punk Rock DVD released by Punkcore Records. That's a band I haven't seen that in ages. That came out a long time ago, I believe. This band is like the same kind of music as the Casualties or the Virus, with a more screeching type vocal, courtesy of Mike Virus from, well, the Virus. So in 2003, they were on tour with the Lower Class Brats. They got in some kind of accident. I don't know the exact details, but I know their van door was ripped completely off. Bricks were, projectiled into the van, and they hit, I think Johnny was his name, and it tore his aorta. Dude, that's crazy. Dude, what part of your body is that? Your throat? Hold on. Whoa, your aorta is the main blood vessel through which oxygen and nutrients travel from the heart to organs throughout your body. Dude, for some reason, I was thinking aorta. I was thinking like eyes for some reason. That's crazy. No wonder they had to cancel the rest of the tour. It says on here, despite the life-threatening accident, he did survive, but he left the band to recover from his injury. On March 1st, 2007, their former guitarist Chris Wick committed suicide after struggling with heroin addiction and depression after the death of his mom in 2004. That led to the band ultimately breaking up. On March 15th, 2007, Cheap Sex sent out a bulletin via MySpace, bro, that's a throwback, stating that they would be breaking up and a final show was in the works. The final show played was June 24th, 2007, with Career Soldiers and 46 Short in Fullerton, California. Endless Struggle. I don't actually know a lot about this band outside the fact that they were a punk band out of Salt Lake City, Utah. They originally formed in 1995 after Magoo left Total Chaos. They went back to Utah. Magoo enlisted Bobby to sing vocals, Greg to play bass, and T. Roy to play drums. After just 2 shows, they added Jesse on second guitar. After a West Coast tour, they were asked by Jake Casualty to begin recording songs for his label Charged Records. Eventually, the band signed with AF Records, though, and released 1 album. They broke up in 2006. They reformed in 2010. As far as how they sound, though, they're like a combination of 90s epitaph skate punk and the Casualty style street punk. It's a great mixture of sounds, in my opinion. I like Endless Struggle a lot, but they seem like they had an endless amount of drama within the band. So, destined to fall apart at that point, I guess. But, good band nonetheless. I enjoy them. So I don't feel personally like this band fits the street punk mold, but all my friends and I loved them, and they were mentioned a lot in the comments on the first video. That would be Filth. Formed in 1989, they were a band that helped form the later East Bay hardcore sound. They combined upbeat, sometimes poppy guitar with harsh, screamed vocals. They released a legendary split album with Blatz known as the Shit Split back in 1991. It came out on Lookout Records originally on LP and cassette. Then a double CD version was released in the mid-90s. As far as I know, the band was only active for a couple of years, like 89 to 91, I think. They reunited in 2010 and performed 4 shows. They played on June 4th at 924 Gilman Street, another one on June 5th at the Hazmat in Oakland, one in San Francisco at the Parkside, and one more on June 10th at the Uptown in Oakland, California. Filth is one of those bands that you immediately know if you like them. Super bouncy bass lines, fuzzy guitar riffs that border on pop punk at times, tempo changes that get you moving around, and some of my personal favorite higher pitched screeching vocals come from this band. I really enjoy Filth quite a bit. So here's a band out of the UK from this time period that, I think the 80s had a lot of UK stuff and the 90s was a lot of American stuff. There was plenty from both throughout the entire history of this music, but the stuff I remember goes kind of like that. 80s was heavier in the UK, 90s was heavier over here. People are going to argue with me about that in the comments, whatever. But the Restarts, they were a London-based street punk band. They've shared members with the UK Subs for a little while. They aren't a band that I know a ton about other than their 2007 album Outsider, which I do like quite a bit. The first song starts with a great bass line and a single string guitar lead. It grabs your attention immediately and holds on tight through its 32-minute runtime. Very much sounds like a UK street punk band too. Buzzsaw guitar, grumpy vocals, some shouted gang vocals, lyrical content we all know and love. It's a great record. I know they have a few other releases. I need to dive into those too. They were formed in 95 and were still active as of 2019. Not sure what they're doing these days, but if you like your street punk with a bit more of an oi edge, give this band a listen. You'll probably like it. Outsider, the title track, and then Running Out of Time. Those are the two songs I remember liking the most on that record. They're on the Punk Rock Review Spotify playlist, and that's linked in the description, like I said earlier. The Strap-ons, a Texas punk band. I don't know how I forgot these dudes last time because I'm terrible at my job, I guess. The Strap-ons were a very short-lived band out of San Antonio, Texas. Some of their members went on to form Complete Control based out of Austin later, another band I really, really like. They have like a monotone yell type vocals in the same vein as like maybe Pistol Grip, something like that. To my knowledge, they've only got two releases, the Can't Hold Back LP and the Fuck Squatter Sympathy 7-inch, both released in 2000, I believe. The song Headache that they have is a standout in my opinion. But yeah, check out the Strap-ons. If you like them, check out Complete Control. Also, Damage Case, Black Star Brigade. I'm going to do a Texas bands list pretty soon, probably the next couple of weeks. So if you like Texas style punk rock and roll, stay tuned, man. I got a good one coming. Okay, so the last band on this list is one that I got a massive heap of crap for not putting into the first one. And it's because like I thought they were like formed in the 80s and they just didn't really get going until the 90s. But upon further investigation, like, yeah, they started in the 80s, but their first release was like almost mid 90s. So I really should have included this band in the first video and I just didn't. My bad, man. Not perfect. Total chaos. Okay, so this is the one that on my first video I made the biggest mistake with. For some reason, I thought that they were a decade older than they are. And I've even talked to these dudes a few times, so I don't know. But they're like an American hardcore street punk band from Pomona, California, I believe, formed in 1989. Lead vocalist Rob Chaos is also co-owner of SOS Records with Ezat Solomon, owner of the Showcase Theater, having released albums by classic punk and oi bands like The Exploited, Vice Squad, Sham 69, Conflict, The Addicts, and Abrasive Wheels, amongst others. With help of Jay Lee from the band Resist and Exist, the band started organizations such as United Valley Punks, Orange County Peace Punks, and Alternative Gathering Collective. Together, they put on social events such as Food Not Bombs. They helped open the Los Angeles Anarchist Center and supported the Big Mountain Indian Reservation. The band has released quite a few albums and been on a ton of big tours. Recently, they co-headlined with The Exploited all over the country. They signed with Epitaph in the mid-90s for their second record, Pledge of Defiance, which is pretty solid. I really like their fourth album, too, Anthems from the Alleyway. It came out in 1996, but it leans way heavier into that 77 style punk stuff a la US Bombs and The Clash than it does like fast, screamy street punk. But they did it really, really well. I appreciate that band a lot. And I feel kind of dumb not including them on the first list. But that wraps up 10 more bands that you need to know from the 90s street punk scene. I got two more things I want to mention real quick and we'll get out of here because these have to be mentioned in this video. So back in the 90s and early 2000s, CDs were big, vinyl was still pretty big, but the only way you could get music was physical media. The internet wasn't really a thing yet. It existed, but it just wasn't easy to get. It was expensive. So we had two record labels that stood head and shoulders above all the other ones if you wanted like legit street punk music. If you didn't want to have any pop in your punk rock, you just wanted street punk, pissed off, like, leather jackets, mohawks, all that stuff. That's your jam. We had two labels. We had Charged Records and we had Punkcore Records. Charged Records was a street punk label that was formed by Jake Casualty in 1998. The label released albums from Antidote, The Casualties, Agristics, The Virus, tons of bands. The label ceased operations in 2008. Then sometime in the 2020s, they opened back up and started doing represses of some classic albums by Antidote and Monster Squad. They started doing albums from Whole Hog, Matthew from Monster Squad's other band, Acides, Mexican street punk, really good band. And then my homies in Dogface Bastards and Rotten Stitches, do shout out to those two bands. Awesome, awesome dudes. It's a very important label out there doing great things. Been a staple in my life for 25 years, man. So hey, if Jake, if you see this, man, and you're interested, I would love to have you on the podcast as a guest, man. I got a lot of respect for you, and I just, been a fan for a long time. So if you see this, hit me up. My email's in the description. I'd really love to talk to you for a little bit. Then we had punk core records. It might have been a little bit bigger than Charged, but not by a bunch. They were both very, very important. Punk core records was founded in 1989 by Dave Amcher, I believe, also known as Dave Punkcore. Based in Long Island, New York, the label originally started as just a punk rock zine and distributor in the late 1980s. They became a record label in the mid 90s. Punkcore Records is often credited for helping revive street punk, a genre that really flourished in the early 80s Britain scene, but had disappeared by the end of the decade. Like I said, the 90s was a resurgence, man. Big, big, big resurgence. Punkcore Records brought global exposure to many underground bands, especially those from the New York area. In 2006, they released the compilation DVD Pure Punk Rock. It was directed by punk filmmaker Lewis Smithingham and featured live performances from all the bands on their label. The label is currently inactive, with the last record being released on March 11th, 2008. In 2010, Punkcore Records ceased releasing music. The label was huge in the 90s and in the early 2000s, providing every punk rocker I knew with most of the stuff that the people considered real punk rock. You know, the people that hate Epitaph and NoFX. Punkcore released classic albums by A Global Threat, The Casualties, Career Soldier, The Havoc, Damage Case, Let's Go, Defiance, Lower Class Brats, Monster Squad, The Virus, The Unseen, Total Chaos, and so many more. Very, very important record labels back in 95 to say 2005. For about a decade there, everything that you got was from one of these labels. If it wasn't Epitaph or Fat, it was Punkcore or Charged. Within those four labels, you could pretty much do everything you wanted with punk music. But yeah, so that's another lesson on some of the bands that were real prominent in the 90s and early 2000s street punk scene. The lines get blurred a lot when you start talking about bands like Filth and even Total Chaos. Honestly, what was the other one that I mentioned? Oh, it was Os Rotten. So yeah, like the lines tend to get blurred when you have bands like Os Rotten and Filth be real popular amongst the real rigid street punk fans. So I don't know. I like all of it. That music's everything on this list. I like quite a bit. I'd say my favorites are probably, I don't know. Blame 77 is something I'm going to really listen to a lot right now. I wouldn't call it my favorite because I wasn't a big fan back then, but Filth I was. Probably Filth, Total Chaos maybe out of this list. Man, Career Soldier. I don't know, man. It might have to be, yeah, it had to be Filth. My favorite. But all these bands have songs I like. They all have albums that I like. I spent a lot of time listening to this over the past few weeks, and like I said, I'll make a playlist of street punk songs, and I'll post that in a pinned comment and in the description. And I'm gonna add songs from all kinds of street punk bands, but all these bands will be represented in there. They'll be there first. And I have just like a punk rock review playlist. It's like 1,600 songs, so plenty of ways to go explore new music if you want to. You can check out my label. You can check out my Patreon if you want to support the channel like that. But yeah, I don't know, man. These are fun videos to do. I really enjoy them. I hope I can get it to below 30 minutes. There's no telling. It takes a lot to edit this stuff. So, but thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I appreciate your time. Yeah, like the video, subscribe to the channel, help the community grow. I need your help. All right. Just like you need mine to entertain you. Right. All right, man. Either way, we'll see you next time on the Punk Rock Review. Peace.